Hi, everyone. Cheers to, this is just Coca-Cola, by the way, just to make that clear. This is a special program regarding a lot of the reactions that we're seeing from predominantly the Australian press, as well as internationally, English, South African, the subcontinent press, whether it's Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, and even Pakistan itself, and the ultimate praise for Babar Azam. Now, it is something of a phenomenon that Australia probably didn't quite equate too much because they hadn't come across Babar Azam too much at test level, especially not in Pakistan, and especially not as a captain in the longer format. The short format, there's a fair bit of evidence of how good a player he is, and it's certainly not was, he certainly is. And a lot of people were doubting his inclusion in the top Fab 5 or Fab 4 of the world. Now, clearly, we've lauded over Virat Kohli to a certain amount as well, to Steve Smith, to Kane Williamson. Certainly lauded over those three. So Kohli, Williamson, Smith for sure have been, and obviously the inclusion of Joe Root, and he's almost 10,000 runs. Dave Warner to an extent at one stage, and Labuschagne more recently. And certainly another player that emerges was Khawaja in that top level. Labuschagne is probably slightly overranked or overrated, but in fact, the inclusion of Babar Azam is quintessential to that now and should be lauded upon. Now, Joe Root has gone close to 10,000, Steve Smith over 8, Kohli over 8, Williamson certainly on his way to those numbers. But Babar Azam has only scored 6 centuries. A lot of other players I've talked about have hit 20 or 30 almost. But I think that Babar Azam, especially in this series we've just seen, especially the innings in the second test, the fourth effort in the second test, Babar Azam, the 196 runs that he had scored, was pretty much near perfect. The conditions were extremely difficult. There should be no reason for a team to bat as long as they did, or as well as they did. It was squarely on Babar Azam. Obviously, Rizwan scored a good century of that innings as well. And previously, we've had Imam al-Haq, Shafiq do very well, and Azhar Ali, who also batted well with his 185. But there's something about Babar Azam's innings that really stood out. A lot of the Australian press, and I'll have Mohsen Sheikh on shortly, we'll talk about the way in which the so-called pantheon of greats. Now, Pat Cummins, there's been a bit of unfairness to say for Pat Cummins in his captaincy. I'll give him the fact that I've been pretty hard on him. I don't think he's a natural captain, but he's done okay, and he's won the series, both the Ashes in Australia and also the touring group in Pakistan, and the overall squad were involved in the World Cup. But Babar Azam, his captaincy is lauded over. I think he's a magnificent captain. He's also an incredible player. But if he continues this trajectory that we're seeing him on now, we will probably see a man who, quite frankly, will reach a level within Pakistani cricket beyond most. There's a lot of discussion around the comparisons between Cummins in the series and Babar Azam. Yes, Cummins won the tournament. 1-0. It was a great effort. He certainly led by example with his bowling. A couple of decisions that were really hard to fathom, especially around the bowling of Scripps and Labuschagne in the second test, but ultimately won the third. But there's no doubt the level of play that we've seen from Babar Azam has really rocked a lot of people. Some would say he deserves to be number one. He hasn't had the opportunity, as has Joe Root and Steve Smith, to play in their home territory, but he certainly has now. And if Pakistan play the likes of New Zealand and England at home, and ultimately South Africa at home, we're going to see a lot of evidence of how good a player he really is. And I know it's at home, but I think he's truly going to be given an opportunity to show his wares. And that 6 centuries will be catapulted a lot further up. Now, currently got Mumbai Indians playing Delhi Capitals. Mumbai Indians are 5-1-77, which is a pretty good total in their so-called 20 overs. Let's have a quick look at that while we're just talking before we get into what goes. Just don't digress. Pretty sure on Tim's side, overrated, I'm afraid, we know. Ishan Kashan got 81 off 48 deliveries, 11 4s to 6s. Sharma 41. Pretty impressive effort there. Kieran Polo didn't get much of a chance. Tim David only was there for, 8 balls. Daniel Sams is also on the side too. This is a pretty good side. So their 2 non-Indian players are David and Sams and Pollard. Mosencar, how are you?
Norman, how are you, man?
Good.
Sorry,
I had a lot of discussion about players and around the world. Obviously, there's a so-called Fab 4 and the potential of being a Fab 5. Mm-hmm. The play of Kohli, Smith. Mm-hmm. I won't include Abhishek at this point at all, but certainly it's Kohli, Smith, Williamson, and Root as being a Fab 4. And there was a non-inclusion of Babar Azam in that 5. Now, you as an Australian journalist, myself as such, and many others that I've had a chance to speak to are lauding over Babar Azam. And I began in that conversation, the emergence of Babar Azam on the world stage, he's not really emerging on the world stage, but playing in his home country is going to allow him to express his talents more and more. And the more he gets an opportunity to play at home, because we know Steve Smith is at home, scored a lot of runs. Williamson does the same. Joe Root certainly does the same, and Kohli certainly the same. But Babar Azam has not been able to include his home scores. And I think when he plays England, New Zealand, and South Africa and the like in the future, he's going to be able to show that. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think if you look at the record for Babar Azam in recent past, he scored a lot of runs against the top 4 nations, namely Australia. He scored runs in Australia, scored that 100 here in Australia and scored that 90 at Gabba. And then if you look at his numbers against South Africa, his numbers against all the big countries are really good. His emergence as a contender to be top 5 is up there. He's averaging in tests is like 46, which is not as high as the other top 4 you're referring to. I think Test match cricket, he's still sitting at number 5 spot in batting ranking. So I think overall, if you look at his credentials, building up to be a genuine contender to be a top 5, I think he's proving his worth. He's captaining the team well. His white ball cricket, he's number 1 in white ball cricket. He's just proven for the last couple of years he's been one of the best, or probably the best batter in white ball cricket. Maybe 2020, maybe one day cricket. He's been up at the top for a couple of years now. I think Test match was questioned by a lot in recent past, but I think he's started to prove that how much worthy he is as a top 5, a genuine contender. I'd say that the batting group has gone way beyond top 4. You've got to have Babar in that group as top 5 without a doubt.
Now, Robert M. 1989 is saying, why are they praising Babar and not Pat Cummins? Now, what we're really talking about, okay, his captaincy is one thing, but it's about his batting that we're talking about in particular. Now, Pat Cummins, we can't compare the two because Pat Cummins' bowling certainly is Bradman-esque bowling-wise at the moment. He's almost got 200 wickets, yes. If we compare on those, but we're not comparing apples and oranges. They're meant to be comparing the batters against the Kohlis, Root, and Williamson, and that sort of ilk. So, looking at his stats, admittedly, he's not batting at 50 over of an average. I respect that. But in all fairness, he's played 40 tests, He scored 28.51 in terms of runs.
Mhm.
His ODI record, he's got a batting average of 56.
Mhm.
T20I batting average of 45. They're pretty good numbers.
Very good.
But and he scored 6 Test centuries, which triple that. He's getting close to 20, as is his Test performances if he equals those other players. So the reality is, we will see as he gets a chance to play more at home, he'll be able to show his true worth. Not that he's a home track bully, as they call it, but I think his class, the way he played that 196 in the second innings of the second Test, was probably one of the best innings I've seen in a long time, and it made you really stand up, especially because of the fact that it was the last 2 days of a Test match, when normally the wicket is quite telling, and it was. The second Test was not an easy Test wicket.
Not easy.
No, the first Test was different. It was a very much a batting pattern paradise. Second Test was not.
No.
Despite, and third was even worse probably, but ultimately his second innings to me really stamped him. And if I look back, I haven't seen Steve Smith do that same innings. Coley's gone pretty close, but that's a while ago now. Root certainly has. You've got to give him credit. And Kane Williamson, well, I don't even know. Kane Williamson hasn't played Test cricket for several months now with his elbow injury. He's supposedly the captain of Sunrisers Hyderabad in the IPL. But is he playing? I don't even think he's playing. And if he is, I have to scratch my head because he hasn't been available for Test level for some months now. Quite a few months.
Yeah.
So Babar Azam, is he going to be the best Pakistan batsman we've ever seen? He has got some stiff opposition. He has got Inzamam ul Haq and Javed Miandad, Muhammad Yusuf and Yusuf Khan, who really, some of the best batters they've ever seen. And Azhar Ali, even record-wise, has now reached 7,000 runs. But I just think Babar Azam, on this trajectory, we were seeing one of the best players Pakistan has produced.
I agree. I think Babar has got that that class about him. You remember a few days ago we were talking about that stardom, the guys who are lacking that stardom coming in recent days as compared to the 80s and early 90s when growing up we've seen a lot of Test cricketers at that time because Test cricket was big in 70s and 80s. You see a lot of stardom building up, even in mid to late 90s with Tendulkar and Laras and Ambrose and Wash and the likes. There was a stardom, and Babar has actually brought that stardom back in Pakistan cricket. He's one of those cricketers who's seen bringing that following in Pakistan cricket. They was missing after Waqar Wasim sort of era. You haven't seen a stardom in Pakistan cricket. There was bits and pieces of famous cricketers, likes of Shoaib Malik, Hafiz, and Wahab Riaz, and all of those guys have seen famous incidents where they've been a bit famous. Whereas Babar now has started to develop that stardom in Pakistan. He's quite a level-headed person. If you meet him in person, he's very down to earth. He's not really upbeat. He comes from a humble family background, being a cousin of Kamran Akmal, who's played a lot of Test match for Pakistan behind the stumps. But he's a really level-headed person. Has captained from the junior ranks from 17s to 19s, and now and captaining Pakistan A in a couple of tours, and then now he's captaining Pakistan. He's captains his PSL team as well in Karachi King and won the PSL last time. Look, he's one of those guys I've seen develop from a solid cricketer coming in and really applying himself. He's very in control of his cricket. He knows what he's doing. He's not flustered from his opposition, regardless of, if you remember a couple of years ago, South Africa tour, he scored 70 odd against Dale Steyn, firing, bowling thunderbolts, and Rabada bowling from other end, and they had Pakistan on toast. And Babar came in unfazed, scored 70 odd with really authoritative drives that he's famous of. He was not afraid of getting on a front foot or back foot to pull him. So that time, Mickey Arthur at that time was a really big advocate, and he said Babar in a couple of years will be as good as Kohli's and Williamson's and whatnot, and he's proved himself. You can't say that he scored runs against the minnows in saying that, like Zimbabwe or Bangladesh or even Sri Lanka at the time. His runs are across the board against all good oppositions, against different conditions. England, he scored. Australia, he scored. UAE, he has scored. South Africa, he has scored, and obviously at home, he's scored as well. So, if you're comparing with the top four, they are good not just at home, away from home as well, and that's where Babar is proving himself to be really good batter away from home. His innings here, 90 odd against Australia, full attack at Gabba, was as good, and then his innings in Karachi just prove all the critics wrong, that he's only scoring runs when team doesn't need it, and that's test saving innings. For me, is probably the best innings, as you said previously, that I've seen him bat, with application, long time, and not unfazed with what the pitch is doing. He batted on a difficult conditions, difficult times, because they were all out 148 in first innings, and saving that test match to bat nearly 2 days was a big ask. And if you remember, Faf du Plessis did that in Adelaide a few years ago against a really strong Aussie bowling attack, and he was a lone warrior, and people said that Faf has arrived. And I think I can comfortably say that Babar's well and truly arrived to be a top five batter.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of people from parts of the continent, including India, that are a bit more critical of him and say that he hasn't quite had the test innings yet, and he hasn't done this, he hasn't done that. And Debashis Mahanti's having a good go at him just there, I can see in the commentary. The reality is that it's what we see and what we have seen in the recent test series that brings it to our attention. He scored 196 against an Australian bowling attack. That, okay, it's not perfect conditions for the Australian bowlers, but I tell you what, that was a damn difficult innings to put together, and he did very well. And even the Pakistani team scored, or 5 of the top 6 scored centuries against Australia. I think we're underplaying Pakistan great. I think Pakistan are really a force, and it's led by Babar Azam, supported by Azhar Ali. Azhar Ali would certainly be up there with it. He's got incredible class, but Babar Azam, just some of the shots that he played were probably the best exponent of a cover drive, of an off drive, of an on drive, I would say, since the likes of a Chappell. He really is stupendous. But it's his pull shots and cut shots, and his ease at the wicket, and incredibly good, solid defence that we don't even notice is happening.
That's exactly right. And his dominance against the reverse ball, where other guys were struggling, his technique is so simple. He keeps it so simple because his balance at the crease is really good. He plays the ball late under his eyes, and when he plays those classical cover drives and off drives, it just looks that he's like you're playing with the elegance of Mark Waugh or Chappell's at the peak of their career. And look how many tests it took Steve Waugh to get his first 100. We all know, he proved to be one of the greatest batters, 30 odd hundreds, 10,000 plus runs. So Steve Waugh was one of the classics that we can reflect upon. That he had to work hard, but we all know Steve Waugh was not really a good player off the back foot. He couldn't pull well, but he was really good off his front foot. But whereas if you compare the two, I can take the criticism from your audience that yes, he's only scored 600s at this point in time, but look at his range of shots, the ease of shots that he gets into his innings, and he's not afraid or flustered about the type of or quality of bowling he's facing, and he just carries on about his innings as if it's a day-to-day routine work for him, which tells you about a class of a batter, that if he's taking it so easily and he's playing his shots, which is he's not shutting up his cover drives, he's not shutting up his straight drives and off drives. He's, regardless of the situation, if the ball is there in his zone, he's really playing his shot. So that tells me the class of a batter, that he's not flustered about what's going around him. He's still brave enough to play those shots, and his execution rate is quite high. And his numbers against the quality opposition speaks for itself. So if he's scoring runs just in subcontinent or just against the minnows, yes, I can take that. He's not really a class, but I think we'd be unfair on him if we can say that he's not up with that class, that we are comparing him to be at top of the tree. And I think he will prove that he'll be the best Test cricketer best Test batter that Pakistan has produced. And I can see him I can picture him going past Yunus Khan and Inzi in scoring 10,000 runs if he continues the way he's progressing at this point in time. He's only young. He's already played 40 Test matches, so he's well and truly on his way to play 125 plus Test matches. And if you remember during the last Test match we were talking about, there's not many Pakistani Test cricketers have played 100 or more Test matches. And you touch base on Azhar Ali. He's already played 94 Test matches, but we still don't class him as an outstanding class. There've been period in 2 years where he was going over 50, but he's still a solid player. I like him. His manner where he scores his runs is really good. But Babar is just a different class.
So Debash's Mahanti, I'm going to be nasty now. He says his top 5 best players are Smith, Kohli, Kane Williamson, and Mars. Well, for starters, that's 4, not 5. But anyway, I don't want to be nasty, but you're down a player. The reality is that Babar Azam is definitely in the top 5. And the way that Virat Kohli and Steve Smith have played lately, and the lack of Kane Williamson due to injury, he really is top 2 or 3. If I'd say he's top 2, and only Joe Root would arguably say currently is in better form than Babar Azam. And I mean, the emergence of Khawaja will be interesting over the next few years, where he could come into play. But I think Khawaja will actually surpass Smith as our most prolific run scorer or getter or whatever you want to call it. Now,
I think subcontinent tours on board. I think next 2 years, I would see Uzi being number 1 Aussie batsman. The way he's played in Pakistan, scoring 495 runs, and last 2 Test matches, Ashes, scoring back-to-back 100 in Sydney. I think I see Uzi in the next 2 years being Aussie's top leading batsman. But out of the top 5 that we've determined, I think Joe Root at this point in time is probably number 1 out of the 5. I'd say he's scoring what he scored 900s in last year and a bit. And in difficult situations in West Indies where they are, they've got their backs to the wall as well. He still scored 100 in last Test match. So he's still number 1 out of the 5 that we think that are at that point. Manas, I think he started to struggle. We saw him have 1 big score in Pakistan, and in those low and slow pitches, I can foresee him, even in Sri Lanka, he'll find it hard to score runs, because he likes the ball coming onto the bat. He likes a bit of pace in the pitch, likes a bit of pace on the ball. He struggled in Pakistan. We've seen 1 big score from him. Sri Lanka would be interesting. He's not going to IPL, so he's got a bit of a lag between now and June. I'm not sure if he's going to England. So he's got a bit of a lag to work between now to June, July, and then India. I think that's where his test will come, whether he belongs to that top 5 or not. If he struggles in Sri Lanka and India, he's going to drop down the rankings really quickly, because all the other guys are scoring runs. They are putting pressure on him. So Manas test is next 6th test for Australia. So I would say he's yet to be tested in those pitches, where Smith have scored runs in India, and we all know Kohli at home is so dangerous. Williamson have scored runs in India, so we all know what other batters can do, but we don't know what Manas can do in India, which is yet to be tested and seen. So I have got I'll hold my comment regarding Manas until I see him play in those 6 Test matches. But Joe Root for me is number one at this point in time. His form for the last year, 1,700 runs, nearly 1,700 runs in a calendar year. It's a remarkable effort. Sole warrior for England, and even started 2022 with 100 in West Indies as well. So I think, yeah. And Barber, I can't think of him being outside the top five, purely how he ranks against all the opposition. Smith hasn't scored 100 since concussion, in the Ashes. Kohli hasn't scored 100 for a good part of 2 years now. And Manas is struggling in Pakistan. So, you got to look at longevity of each player and against each opposition in different conditions. So that's my argument in saying that yes, Barber belongs to that top five, but Manas is questionable.
Yeah, I don't put. I'm sorry. I see too many flaws in Manus's performance that we're beginning to see more of. But anyway, Smith's the best player, but he's also waning. Kohli's waning. Williamson's injured. Really, Babar Azam is clearly with Root, and there's a bit of daylight going on, except for Guzman Khawaja. Look, there's a great lineup in I've seen in a number of places, including Quick Info, and they talk about him being, not only is he being good at Test cricket, his ODI was second in 2001, second quickest to 1,000. He's leading his country's way in that regard. He's got a calm. He's 27 years of age, so he's got at least 8 to 10 years worth of cricket left in him. In those 8 to 10 years, he could score 8 to 10,000 Test runs, which would put him then right up in the class of a Ponting, a Sangakkara, and beyond. And I think he will be the leading Pakistan run scorer, given the opportunity of playing. Not forgetting the last 2.5 years, he's played virtually no Test cricket. So he's actually had 2.5 years carved out of his career due to COVID, not unlike the Second World War in some ways. His technique in particular, both defence and attack, is superb. He plays traditional shots, a lot of time for him. I mean, because he didn't play that much against Australia in Test cricket, we couldn't judge him, but he showed us up pretty badly. And I reckon in Australian conditions, his batting style will be suited to Australian batting conditions more and more. I think they've got I think, is it end of this year or next year? I think Pakistan are touring. I'm pretty sure. But more importantly, he's going to get the opportunity at home against England, against England, South Africa, and England and the like. England, South Africa, and New Zealand. He's going to show his wares, and there'll be some massive scores. I still look at the 196 he scored in the second Test match in Karachi, and that was stupendous, considering the stage of the match in particular. So he did save that match. He didn't win the Test match, but he did save it. A major way towards that happening.
Agree 100%. The other thing is with his batting style, you see he's not really slogging, and all of a sudden he's going with the especially in the one-day cricket, you see he's going run a ball, and then all of a sudden he changes gear, and he before you know it, he's scored runs at quite a good rate, and he does that in Test cricket as well. So he's going. In Karachi, he's consuming a lot of balls, and he's making a big innings because that was the need for the hour. But when there was a need for to make runs quickly, he's done that. He's done that in South Africa against the likes of Steyn and Rabada. He's done that here in Australia when he scored that 100 against Australia. His scoring rate was nearly about 60. His strike rate 60. So he's a multi-dimensional player without even looking like that. He's working his he just eases into innings. It looks easy on the eye. If you remember Mark Waugh, when I was growing up watching Mark Waugh playing effortless stroke, and you just think how easy it is for him, and it's just like David Gower, if you remember in his days, well, like silky hands. It wouldn't look like that he's making an effort to score runs, but yet he's scoring runs with just such an ease. And I think that's what he has got. He's easy to watch. He's pretty in the eyes when he plays his cover drive and straight drives. And you got to listen to the opposition bowlers when they bowl to him. And Cummins' comments after the conclusion of Test series, he said Babar was the class above because it was so competitive bowling to him, and he enjoyed that a bit of a competition bowling to him because he was above the class. So you got to listen to what the opposition is saying, what the opposition bowlers are saying. And Cummins, we both agree that he will stand out through the series. And if he's making that comment against the opposition batsman, you got to give that a bit of weighting as well.
Yeah, look, we're going to come back to this person over time. He will show his wares more and more. The more opportunity he gets, the more exposure because of the lack of Test cricket the last few years. He's now on 40 tests, I reckon, especially because of captaincy too, that'll add to his stability about his batting. Once he reaches 100 tests, which he probably will have an opportunity to do, he'll be up around the top level of Azhar Ali, M. Zaman Al Haq, Javed Miandad, that sort of style about Yunus Khan, Muhammad Yusuf. He's right in that area, and clearly I think we've got to watch him more closely. Hopefully, he gets more of an opportunity to play at home as well as away. He certainly will now with England, New Zealand, and South Africa, and those three teams won't trouble him at home.
No.
He'll show his wares.
If he escaped with good stead against Aussie bowling attack, which is probably the best at the moment, I think he will be at ease against the struggling English bowling attack, and even New Zealand bowling attack will not trouble him at home pitches. I think he'll be quite feeling comfortable against those pace attacks. I mean, you see them in West Indies. The English attack is struggling at the moment. West Indies are quite competitive at home against England, so I think that's my worry, how England's going to be performing in subcontinent when they tour Pakistan, because they haven't dominated in West Indies pitches, which we spoke about. We touched base earlier that we want to see England dominate against West Indies. That would show that they are on a mend and they're moving forward in their Test cricket. So I don't see Babar getting really struggling against English pace attack or even their spin attack. So I think he's got the opportunity, and that's what we want to see Pakistan play more Test matches. I mean, unfortunately, they don't play enough Test matches. They don't play enough at home at all, but they don't play enough Test matches like the English do, Australia do, India do. We need to see Pakistan play more Test matches against the top nations. So it'd be really great to see Pakistan play Test against India, because I think a lot of the audience that follow your channel as well and around the world, they want to see Pakistan play India in Test cricket, which unfortunately hasn't happened for a long time. And I think there's a lot of appetite for that.
Because actually, in terms of batsmen that we look up to in the world, it has been Smith, Kohli a lot over the years, Root and Williamson. The three of those top four now are just not being, definitely Smith and of course Kohli have not had a good run over the last, certainly over the last playing time of 12 months or so, if not more than that. Even before COVID somewhat, they haven't really been up there with runs. So Babar Azam showed his way in that test. In fact, as I said, only one Australian scored centuries in that Test series, and that was Gizmo Khawaja. There's four of his colleagues, Babar Azam's colleagues, scored centuries in front of him, meaning he had less chance for himself to bat. So maybe if he was given the same latitude as Azhar Ali, he might have scored more runs as well. But I've got no doubt where he's ranked in the world now. He's one or two, he's probably two, but he's up there in the world rankings. And he'll be playing a lot more cricket in 22 and 23, so we'll see a lot more of him, and we'll compare our notes from what we're talking about now and what we see. I'm predicting he'll get 10,000 runs at 27. Agreed. 10 years of play, he'll get another 10,000 runs for sure.
I agree 100%.
All right, that's a little deserved comment about the man. I think his batting records so far, as we spoke earlier, he certainly 40 tests at 2851 with a batting average of 45.98. Now, it won't take much for that to reach 50. And once he hits 50, it'll probably stay there. He has scored 21 50s, 6 centuries. And again, but his ODI record's amazing. Not as many T20 internationals, but he leads the way by far. He has had the novelty of taking 2 wickets, but that doesn't make much difference. Labuschagne, of course, thinks he's the next biggest thing. And
talk about those pitches. Talk
there's
about
somewhat of a joke going on there.
Yeah.
Now, Devash's Mahati, not a big fan of Bubba, still commenting. Pakistan batsmen score hundreds, yes, but Bubba was one of them. And okay, they batted particularly well, Pakistan as a team, led by a captain who did fight very hard. Admittedly, Australia did win, and I'm still to this day a bit shocked that Australia won, but it was a series that they were up against it with Pakistan, and I would like to see Pakistan at home, our home. I'm sure they'll do very, very well if they keep this batting lineup together. Shafiq will be incredible.
Fantastic, yeah. I think, as we said previously, I give this team, core of this team, you need to give 2 years. You bring in another youngster in the middle order instead of Fawad. You keep your core in Shaheen Afridi and Naseem Shah as your core quicks, and then you get Haris Rauf in there. That's your 3 important pace bowling attack. Bring in a spinner here and there and an all-rounder. I think you get the team balance right. Your openers are doing okay. It's just the number 5 spot at the moment. Babar Azam gets dropped for me and get another middle order batter. I think that's where you give the team or core of the team a couple of years, and I think they'll be really competitive, led by Babar again. And we've seen him captain now nearly 12 months and over. I think his captaincy has come good as well. His batting has improved. His average in Test cricket has improved since he's become captain, because he's taking a bit more responsibility, and he's used to captaining the teams right through the younger ranks from 17s, 19s, and A series. So he's been a leader all through his age groups, and I think that's where he'll continue to be a more improved, better as his leadership grows.
Yeah, but Babar Azam just announced himself in the Australian side. It's a bit like the way the Bangladesh women's team have done very well in the IPL, in the World Cup, when they have now won a game against Pakistan. They almost beat West Indies, gave Australia a shake. Pakistan had the opportunity for the first time to play Australia and really gave Australia a big scare. And this is what I'm saying. Babar Azam's now had an opportunity to play Australia at home and showed his wear with his 196. I think that really has to be understood, that the exposure that he will have, especially now with teams coming to his country, we'll see more and more runs coming his way, which he deservedly should have. And that's a great starting point for him to take on. And I'm expecting big things from him. I really think that we should look very closely at his career, and including the top 5, the Fab 5, if not, to start taking people out of it soon. We may bring it back to 4, but who we fall out? I mean, are we going to drop Kohli at this point from that? He's getting close. I don't think so. He's too good. He's too
There's
good.
a lot of talk about, even if you look at a lot of media, there's a lot of talk about, and I know we touched base when he was playing his 100th Test match, and there was a lot of backing for him to go and score 100 in 100 Test matches. Surprisingly, I send you that stat, and Gavaskar was really making a comment about there's no Indian who's made 100 in 100th Test match. So that's what we were hoping. Both you and I were really going for to watch that Test match closely when Kohli was going to walk out for his 100th Test match and score 100 and break that jinx for India that none of the Indian Test cricketers have scored 100 in a 100 Test match, whereas India is known for their batting greats, in like Gavaskar and Tendulkar's and Kohli's now. So it's really interesting how Kohli's next year comes about, because he's got Australia home series, 1 test away in England, and then following year they've got a lot of away tours as well. So it's really interesting to see how Kohli bounces back, which I'm sure he will, because he's such a class. He's had a tough patch. I think taking away captaincy I don't know whether he responded really well to it, but I think now he's understood. He's not captain anymore. He wants to play as a normal player, like Tendulkar did towards the later half of his career. I think the next few Test matches that Kohli's going to play, he's going to be on that mindset that I've got no pressure about captaincy. I just play as a leadership group, senior player, and he'll score a lot of hundreds, which I would like to see him. He go past Gavaskar's 3,400 mark. Interesting next year and a bit for him. Same with Steve Smith. Since concussion, if you remember Steve Smith's concussion in England, which Marnus came in and replaced him in that Test match, Steve Smith has been on a lean run. He's scored a few 50s, we know that, but he has not scored 100. He hasn't gone on and make a big runs. His fielding has dropped off. 7 drop catches in the series in first slip. It's not really a reflection of Steve Smith's fielding credentials. Where's his, where he's, and we saw him practicing quite a lot. And even in his practice, he was dropping a lot of catches as well. So, I don't know whether his mindset is there for slip fielding, whether he needs to be out of slips. Uzi came on in one of the press conferences and backed him, but very next day he dropped 2 more catches. So I don't know where post concussion how he's responding. He's definitely still averaging over 60, but because he's a class act as well, so we'll see how he responds. And Marnus, we've said Marnus's real test is India. He hasn't played in India yet. He hasn't scored in India yet. So his real test is to go out there playing against the likes of Ashwin and Jadeja and whatnot. So, and dominate that part of cricketing nation. I think that would prove him to be worthy of Fab 5 or not. Otherwise, if he does poorly there and in Sri Lanka, I think he'll be dropping round the ranks really quickly. I think, because that's a real test.
Excellent. I think that's a good summary for talking about Babar Azam. We may return to Babar Azam in future discussions, but he is appraised by the Australian press. Of course, Pat Cummins is too, but I think they really stopped and took notice of Babar Azam around that 196, batting demeanour throughout the whole Test series. He's inspiration to the others, and obviously Azhar Ali and the Opener Shafiq and Imam Al Haq certainly cashed in as well. So did Rizwan with the support of Babar to get to that point. Very significant, pivotal person in this squad, I think.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
All right, Moses, I'll let you go early. Well,
thanks,
it's not early.
Great discussion. Good feedback from people, and we respect that. And I think it'd be, as you and I both agree, that next few years we'll keep a good eye on him and see where his destination, his journey takes him towards that destination of 10,000 plus runs and being classified as one of the greats from Pakistan or not. So we'll keep an eye and we'll keep talking that in our future conversations.
Thank you, Moses. Very, very well said.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thanks to your audience as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Moses.
Bye.
Yeah, and I echo those words. Azhar Ali certainly has great. He scored 7,000 runs. You had Yunus Khan, Mohammed Yusuf, all greats. And then obviously Inzamam Al Haq and Jabir Minday, magnificent. The Mohammed brothers, all very, very good. But I think Babar Azam is now going to surpass them all, especially record-wise, which is quite damn bloody impressive indeed. All right, guys, we'll make this short. It's 44 minutes almost. So please view, like, and share the post. Subscribe if you haven't done so. Hit the notification button. Go to @NormanKoch, which is my Twitter and my Instagram page. And my full name, Norman Koch, is on Facebook. With some 5,000 there and 16,000 on LinkedIn, all enjoying discussions that we have. And you can join in, please, and make comment. Give us feedback. Tell us what you think. Hunty's certainly given us some great feedback, which we really take on as being very important to the actual episodes that we make. We want to have as best a content as we possibly can. We want to make sure that we have as best viewership as we possibly can. And other than getting Babar Azam in as an interview, it could have been the one thing we could have done. That's the other thing we could do in the future, is to bring him on and do exactly that. So yes, it's somewhat of a positive to have Moses and Sheikh, and we'll have other Australian media to talk about him over time. The articles are there. It's been very, very good indeed. I'll cheers to him. Cheers with my Coca-Cola. Black Gold, Texas Cheese. Isn't that what I said? All right, guys. Any other questions? If not, we'll say good night. Babar Azam, well lauded over. The IPL as well, truly in travel. We've still got T20s and ODIs from Australia and Pakistan to go as well. So enjoy them all, and we'll talk very soon.